Chapter 2.
Harry looks harder. Malfoy left Elops, the original detective noted. No other witnesses. There's an interview with Malfoy's wife, Astoria Greengrass, who reported Malfoy missing after he didn't return home for the night. Typical interview, Harry thinks, reading the transcript. Astoria appeared, in a state of distress, and proved to be of little use. Nevertheless, he reads it again and again. Visits the pensive again and again until he has it memorized, until he knows the script by heart. How may I help you? I am in need of an owl. Speed is less important than accuracy. The shopkeeper, playing his role as a typical post-war man meeting a post-war Death Eater. Clipped words and stiff body language that says I know who you are, but I'm too civil to point it out. Draco Malfoy, playing his role too. Can appear too brash or demanding, Harry thinks, watching Malfoy for the 10th time as he reaches for an owl. Must show just the right amount of deference. It's there in the polite neutrality of his voice, in the way he keeps his body language small and contained. Not drawing attention, not making bold or sweeping gestures. I know who I am too, and I'm tired of people pointing it out. He watches the memory again. 11 times in total, and it's going nowhere. This is the hardest part of solving cases, Harry thinks. Getting started. Looking for something, but nobody knows what it is. It's like trying to find a book without knowing the title or author. Books. Hermione. He decides to visit her tomorrow night. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. You want my help? Hermione knows, he thinks, as soon as she sees him standing in her fireplace. Ron's away on an overnight stakeout. Nevertheless, dinner is cooking over the kitchen hearth and Harry assumes he's invited to stay without a word from Hermione. You're the smartest, which I know. Don't start, she says with a laugh. I hear that all the time from Ron when he needs help tracing a dark artifact or potion. Harry gives her a wry smile and steps into the room, setting the file down on the kitchen table. He may as well get to the point, he thinks. They know each other too well to spend time dancing about a topic. Draco Malfoy. Hermione starts. What? You saw him? I didn't. That's the problem. Her brow creases, if only for a moment. Then she glances at the file and remembers. Oh, Harry, she says, looking exasperated. They didn't assign you that file, surely? He nods and pulls out a chair, sitting down. Oh, honestly. Hermione sighs. You'd think they'd have a bit more sense. Well, if you ask Holdsworth for a file transfer, I'm sure. I can be objective, you know, Harry says, faintly annoyed. This is my job, after all. Solving cases. Hermione looks at him, raises her eyebrows, and then turns round to busy herself with the kettle. Tea. You don't believe me. Yes, I do. Tea. Yes, thanks, Harry says warily. Listen, Hermione. I said I believed you, didn't I? Now, what do you need help with? She puts a teaspoon of sugar into a mug and turns around, glancing at him. Defeated, he lets her look through the file. She scans it, looking increasingly surprised as she reads on. Well, he says when she's done. She glances up at him. Well, truthfully, I'm rather surprised. I always assumed Malfoy disappeared to some luxurious holiday destination, just to escape his old life. But this... I know. Harry stares down at the table, fingers tracing patterns in the wood. Sounds like a forced disappearance, doesn't it? Hermione's arm twitches slightly, as if remembering the souvenir Bellatrix's torture left behind. Forced disappearance. The words the Ministry liked to use during Voldemort's reign. It sounded so much nicer than abduction or murder. Have you visited Elops? She asks. Multiple times. I'm not sure what else the memory can give me. Not the memory. The store itself. Harry frowns. You think there's something left there? No, Hermione says. But it might offer a new perspective. She taps the file. Would you mind if I access the memory? Maybe I'll find something you missed, Harry adds silently. Hermione's too tactful to say the words herself. I haven't got a problem, Harry says, but Holdsworth might. Confidentiality and all that. Long as you don't tell anyone you saw the memory, I'll be fine. You know I won't. Hermione straightens up suddenly and glances towards the kitchen. Oh! Tea's getting cold. Harry settles back in the chair, glancing at the file. He wishes Hermione had more concrete suggestions, but he's not coming up with anything better. A new perspective. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The silver bell chimes gently as Harry enters the shop, and he's struck by a profound sense of déjà vu. By the counter, the gray-haired shopkeeper glances up. May I help you? He asks blandly. Harry's taken a polyjuice potion, selected randomly from the wide stock of ministry potions, for the sake of avoiding recognition. It's easier this way when he's investigating witnesses. And Merlin help him, he's so stuck in the memory that he repeats the first thing that comes to mind. I am in need of an owl. Speed is less important than accuracy. He blinks, feeling unsettled by the taste of foreign words in his mouth, singing a song that isn't his. We have several eagle owls that have demonstrated geographical accuracy, the shopkeeper says, leading Harry over to a collection of owls. The shop hasn't changed at all, Harry thinks, letting the shopkeeper continue his sales pitch. The same narrow windows illuminate the shop with the same sunlight, although it's slightly brighter in its late summer glow rather than the weak rays of September. The boxes of supplies clutter the shop, and the owls ruffle their feathers overhead along the roosts. He could question the shopkeeper, but it's unlikely he could give any further details. Besides, it's been 5 years, and Draco Malfoy was simply another customer. Our owls self-deliver, the shopkeeper said, noticing Harry staring at a golden-eyed eagle owl. You can pick them up later or simply write your address and await delivery. Harry starts. The shopkeeper looks at him with surprise. I am looking for an owl, Harry says, softening the blow of a lost sale, but I'm also investigating a cold case at the moment. He holds up a badge, grateful it has his reference number rather than his name. Draco Malfoy. The shopkeeper stares at him blankly. Then, oh, him. Look, I've already given a memory, and I'm afraid I hardly remember the incident at all now. Just a quick question, that's all, Harry says. Regarding the owl he purchased. Did it ever return to the shop? I don't recall. Do you have records? I'm afraid we destroy records of sale after 12 months. The shopkeeper gives Harry a peculiar look and he realizes his hair is slowly darkening to black again. He fumbles for the flask of polyjuice potion and takes another swig. The shopkeeper gives the flask a very suspicious look. Are you drinking on the job? He demands. What's your name? I'll report you, you know. Potion for my dragon pox, Harry retorts, and the shopkeeper retreats very hastily. Harry purchases a box of owl treats, at least, leaving a handful of nuts on the counter, and disappears out the door. The silver bell chimes softly behind him. He pauses a moment, tempted to try and trace Malfoy's steps, but besides turning left he has no idea where Malfoy went. He goes home instead. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Coming home is effortless to other people. They come home in the same way they draw breath, or take a step, or glance up at the stars when they're beneath the night sky. Coming home is a journey learned by rote, committed to the memory of their heart. Take a turn here, a corner there, 10 steps to the front door, and they're home. To Harry, it's a weary journey that he must think about, and he's painfully, consciously aware of the exact measurements of the home to which he's going. A 2-bedroom apartment in Westminster, polished and sleek, commanding a modest view over the skyline of southwest London. It had cost an uncomfortable amount of money, but it was in an ideal location. Perfect as a home base for Ginny, who had to frequently travel across the United Kingdom for her Quidditch matches. And as she had said when she first booked an inspection for the apartment, the perfect place for Harry, so close to the ministry. He operates to the front door and unlocks it with a wave of his wand. Inside, the lights are on and the wizarding wireless is playing. For a moment, Harry's heart lifts. Too often has he returned to a dark, empty apartment to find Ginny's practice has run overtime. "Harry," Ginny calls from the bedroom. "Home at last. Normally, I'm the one doing overtime." He walks to the bedroom and sets his messenger bag, stuffed full of files, on the floor. His heart slowly sinks again. Ginny is flurrying around the room, her red hair splaying around her in a vibrant splash of color. She turns and grins at him, her freckles scrunching up like handfuls of sand. Guess what? He doesn't have to guess. Judging by the amount of Quidditch gear she's shoving into her bag, and looking at the little wash bag sitting on her bedside table, her team won their first match of the season. "Congratulations, Ginny," he says. "I'm sorry I couldn't make the game." "Only preliminaries," she says easily. "We're playing the Margate Rovers on Saturday." "That's not too far away," Harry says, eyeing the overnight bag. Ginny pauses halfway through wrapping up her shin guards and looks apologetic. "I'll be leaving tonight, though, so we can practice all tomorrow on the Margate pitch." She grabs a practice quaffle and shoves it into the bag. "Oh, how'd your case go?" "Good. Closed the Fenwick one." "Did you?" "Brilliant." Ginny grabs her bag. "Ticket on the table if you can make it to the game." "Love you." Then she reaches for the portkey on the bed, an empty Jamie Dodgers packet, and whirls away in the blink of an eye. Harry sits on the edge of the bed and listens to the silence. It seems amplified by the white walls, the endless expanse of glossy floorboards, the kitchen in which they never cook. He falls back slowly until he's lying down on the bed and stares at the ceiling. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That night, Harry dreams. He's in the memory again. The soft rustle of feathers overhead, the sound of talons against wood. Draco Malfoy walks into the shop. Something's different. Harry tilts his head, frowning. The shop seems a little brighter somehow. Did someone light a candle? A lantern? No. The sunlight, he thinks. It's fiercer, as if it's the light of a summer day. And the shopkeeper, his face seems different somehow, as if slightly more lined. His robes, too, seem somehow more worn, more creased. "How may I help you?" "I am in need of an awl. Speed is less important than accuracy." Harry walks up to Malfoy. Look for clues, he thinks vaguely. But he's looked at this scene so many times. There's a slight pause in conversation between Malfoy and the shopkeeper. Harry, aware of the unusual silence, frowns and lifts his gaze. Malfoy is staring at him. Harry's eyes widen for a moment before he remembers it's just a memory. Malfoy isn't looking at him, he's looking through him. Then Malfoy glances down at his own hand. Harry automatically follows his gaze. There's nothing particularly interesting about Malfoy's hand, he thinks. He glances back up again, but Malfoy's already looking at something else, another awl. Harry wakes, feeling unnerved. Now he even dreams about the memory, it seems. He reaches for the glass of water, usually kept on his bedside table. Then he pauses, eyes glazing slightly. Malfoy's hand. He wasn't wearing a ring. A wedding ring. It wasn't there. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Hermione looks around the Aulary. She'd agreed to visit the pensive memory with him, if only for Harry to demonstrate his success. He looks thin, she'd observed of Malfoy, but Harry had quickly shushed her. Look, in a few seconds, he'll glance at his hand. I can't believe I didn't notice it earlier. Any moment. They wait. Malfoy looks at the owls, nods, points at one. Harry frowns. He should have already. But before they know it, Malfoy has finished the sale and left. Hermione gives Harry an apologetic look. Well, you probably noticed it subconsciously and your dream planted the information there for you. I guess. Anyway, Hermione says encouragingly, this is a start. What do you think it means? What? Not wearing his ring. I don't know. Could mean anything. Maybe his marriage was falling apart. Maybe he lost the ring. Maybe he just doesn't like wearing it. Maybe he was getting it resized because of recent weight loss, Hermione says, and Harry wishes he'd thought of that. That's actually a good point, he admits. Nevertheless, when he steps out of the memory, he looks up the contact address for Astoria, last updated in the file 3 years ago. He hopes it hasn't changed. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. The summer is cooling down to a soft glow of hazy blue and shy green. Astoria's house, a large Georgian home with a gabled roof and young ivy climbing its limestone walls, is set against a background of lushly green gardens dotted with bright frenzies of wildflowers and, every now and again, a graceful young oak or chestnut tree. It's the sort of place to which Harry could effortlessly come home. He walks up the narrow path to the front door, ducking beneath a trellis of roses colored a soft pink, as if summer has faded them, and knocks twice on the door. Astoria answers. Harry, taught well by now to look at every detail, catches the look of brief surprise that flashes across her face. She's wearing a casual sundress, printed with roses, and her sun-streaked hair is pulled back into a half-hearted ponytail. Not the way she'd present herself usually, Harry guesses, and he smiles apologetically. I've visited at a bad time, haven't I? No, not at all, Astoria says after a beat. Her eyes dart to his scar and away again quickly. He's chosen not to use polyjuice for this particular visit. I'm here on ministry business, Harry says. Might I come in? Aye, certainly. She steps back, allowing Harry to walk into the refreshingly cool hallway, and closes the door. Something is baking, Harry thinks, inhaling the sweet aroma of sugary pastry. He steps over a rag doll and frowns. He didn't realize Astoria had a child. Tea? Astoria asks. Thanks. He follows her into the kitchen, illuminated by bright sunlight. The wizarding wireless on the counter is playing a cheerful song, teamed with the pleasant aroma of baked sweets, and the uncaring mess of the kitchen, flour spilt across the counter, a cluster of butter-smeared measuring spoons. Harry feels a little more relaxed. A footstep behind him. He turns. A young child, no more than 1.5 years old, he'd guess, is clutching a half-eaten strawberry and staring at him. Hello, he says. The girl studies him a moment, then takes a bite of strawberry before uttering a messy "ullo" in return and toddling out of sight. Astoria pours Harry a cup of tea and sets it down on the kitchen table. He takes the cue and sits down on a chair, first removing a toy model of the Hogwarts Express and several plush toy owls. I'm here about Draco Malfoy, he says, watching Astoria's face carefully. She pales, her grip tightening around her mug of tea. No, she says. My petition was accepted. They agreed I'd done everything I could to locate him. What petition? Harry asks, confused, and Astoria looks at him as if he's just asked which direction the sun comes up. My divorce petition. The divorce has already been granted in absentia. It can't be reversed. Astoria is outright anxious now. Harry quickly shakes his head. No, it's nothing to do with that. I've been assigned the case. They already investigated. It was 3 years ago. Astoria's anxiety is fading to confusion. Cold case now, yes. Harry hesitates, but the original case manager already asked Astoria all the generic questions. Where did she last see him? Was there anyone who wished him harm? And so on. Asking them now will get him nowhere. He takes a sip of tea to collect his thoughts, but he's never been good at interview strategies, and so he says the first thing that comes to mind. I didn't realize you'd remarried. Astoria gives a tense smile. Matthew Venn. You wouldn't know him. She perhaps catches Harry's glance towards the doorway, for she adds, our daughter, Sophie. People judge you for it, Harry says slowly. Astoria glances away, staring down at her cup of tea. Of course. That's what people do, isn't it? They judge. My parents adored Draco. If it were up to my mother, I'd be a widow forever, trailing about the place dressed in mournful black. She thought it was awful of me to remarry. She taps a fingernail against the rim of the mug. I was very close to Draco, of course, and when he first went missing I was a mess. That matches the case officer's description of his interview with her, Harry thinks. But we learn to pick up the pieces and move on, don't we? She seems to be waiting for affirmation, so Harry gives it. We do, yes. Astoria nods. The conversation lulls. She traces the pattern on the mug, one fingernail skimming over the printed flowers and leaves. Harry looks at her. Properly looks, as he's been taught to do with any item of evidence. She seems casual, never consciously aware of her movements, whether it's tucking her bare feet under the chair or tracing patterns on the mug. Quick to smile, Harry thinks, seeing the beginning of fine laugh lines around her eyes. Her light tan and sun-tinted hair suggests someone who enjoys being outdoors. A stack of books on the corner of the table with titles like Easy Gardening Charms and The British Guide to Sustainable Harvest certainly attest to that, although they may belong to Matthew. The words are out before Harry can stop them. You don't seem like someone Malfoy would marry. Astoria's eyes flicker to his, and Harry's startled by her expression. Surprise, he thinks, and caution? Perhaps even a tinge of suspicion. Oh! And why's that? She asks. Yes, her voice is definitely guarded now. Harry shrugs. To be honest, I always pictured his wife to be a female version of him. He says it as a joke, to try and put Astoria at ease again, but she doesn't smile. Then I suppose you don't know him very well, she says. No, Harry says, studying her. I don't. He takes his leave then. He'll visit again, and bring up her previous marriage then. Speaking of it now won't get him anywhere, he senses. Astoria has withdrawn from her initial welcome. She bids him farewell politely enough, however, and he leaves. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Harry returns to his Westminster flat. Coming home to the box in the sky, he pours himself a glass of Irish whiskey and stands on the balcony, looking over the London skyline. He remembers how Ginny's eyes had lit up, the city lights reflected in her pupils, when they first stood at this window and looked at the view. It's beautiful, she had breathed. She always had the ambition and drive to own a place like this. Strong lines, clean forms, and bold features. She'd been enchanted with London since she was a little girl, accompanying her father on trips to the ministry and loving the rush of the city. One day, I'll live in a box in the sky, she had told her father once, and on the day they bought the apartment, she had laughed with the joy of achieving a long-lost childhood dream. Harry's heart belongs to the rambling houses of stone and wood, the homes that first captured his heart, Hogwarts, a ramshackle and ancient beast of stone and magic, and, later on, the Burrow with its cozy rooms and meandering gardens. He takes a sip of the whiskey, feeling the slow burn in his throat. He can see the lights of South Lambeth across the river, reflected in the glittering darkness of the River Thames. A train is approaching the above-ground platforms, visible only as an even line of lights crawling along. A moment later, another train leaves, picking up speed. Harry watches the train until it disappears from view, going out west, where the lights of the city will give way to dotted suburban streetlights, and then the inky darkness of the countryside. Somewhere, in the streets below, someone is whistling a familiar tune. Harry tilts his head, listening for a long moment before the words come to him. An old English folk song, he remembers. Blow the wind southerly, southerly, southerly. Blow the wind south o'er the bonny blue sea. Blow the wind southerly, southerly, southerly. Blow bonny breeze and bring him to me. The last of the summer is bending to autumn's will, sending a chill breeze whispering through Harry's hair. He shivers and steps inside, sliding the door shut behind him. The trains come and go, threading along like lines of stars, disappearing gradually into the night. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Saturday. It's Ginny's big game. Harry wakes early. This is a routine, and it grounds him like a lightning conductor. Wake early, go for a run. Shower, dress. Breakfast. He's just reached the breakfast stage of his routine and is halfway through a bowl of cereal when his wards tremble. He pushes the bowl away and stands up, making his way to the door. Hermione? Or Ron, wanting to come along for the game? But Harry's becoming very adept at picking up magical signatures these days, particularly after his investigative division training. There's magic drifting around the front door, but it's not Hermione's nor Ron's. He picks up his wand and whispers a spell, rendering the door transparent only to him, like a one-way mirror. Blonde hair. Blue eyes. Harry hesitates, then opens the door. Mrs. Malfoy. The woman pauses, then nods. You may call me Narcissa. You should not have found me. As far as Harry's adoring masses are concerned, he lives somewhere in Sussex. Only Hermione and the Weasleys know the truth. And yet here I am. She speaks politely, evenly, without a trace of coldness or resentment in her voice, and Harry is hit by the similarity between her tone and that of Draco in the Alley. Both of them have had something struck from their voices since the war, Harry thinks. That polite deference that seems heavy as silence, blank as white walls, like one person in an empty room. Harry swallows the temptation to ask how she found him. Come in, he says instead, because what else can he do, with Narcissa Malfoy standing on his doorstep? She steps inside. The wards shimmer for a moment, then accept her as someone who means no harm. She looks around, eyes flicking once around the room, but Harry doubts she's prying. She seems to be looking for a chair instead, but there are no overstuffed armchairs or cozy sofas in this sparse apartment. There's only the row of stools by the island bench, and a glass-topped dining table with 2 dining chairs on each side of it. He checks his watch. He should be porking in the next 15 minutes, arriving in time to wish Ginny luck. My arrival is ill-timed, Narcissa comments, and Harry quickly shakes his head. Narcissa is already beginning to look doubtful, and the last thing he wants is for her to flee, taking any useful information with her. Not at all. Tea or coffee? He asks, hoping Narcissa will refuse both. The only tea available is Builder's tea, and the coffee is a cheap instant powder kept only for Arthur Weasley's infrequent visits. She declines with a faint shake of her head. No, thank you. Harry sits at the dining table. Neither he nor Ginny use it particularly often, although there's an inkwell and quill in the corner for letter writing. There's a faint patina of dust over the table. He mutters a discreet scourgify. Narcissa takes the other chair, glancing once across the apartment. It's a surprisingly clear day for London, and she seems to pause to take in the view. Then she opens the small purse in her lap and pulls out a photograph, placing it face up on the table. I received a ministerial several days ago, she says, stating that my son's case had been reopened and is under your management. Harry looks at the photograph. It's a simple portrait of Draco Malfoy. He's unsmiling, mouth turned slightly downwards as though he's contemplating something sorrowful. He's wearing slate-gray robes and a plain black cloak. Harry looks closer. Sure enough, the clasp is a small silver snitch. Malfoy glances away and Harry, startled, nearly drops the photograph. He thought it muggle from the way Malfoy didn't seem to move at all. It's the last photograph I took of Draco, Narcissa says. Right. Harry doesn't know what else to say. He glances back down at the portrait. He liked that silver snitch clasp. It was a gift from his father, he said. Harry glances up, wondering if Narcissa somehow read his mind. But she's not looking at him, she's gazing at the photograph, and although there seems to be the faintest trace of a smile on her lips, sadness lines her face. She looks far older than Harry remembers. The fine lines around her eyes seem deeper and she seems thinner. Harry wonders if all the Malfoys became thinner and smaller after the war, taking up less space or trying to vanish themselves somehow. Do you know why he liked the silver snitch, Harry? Narcissa asks. He half wishes she called him the far more formal Mr. Potter. He's not sure he's comfortable with any Malfoy calling him by his first name. No, he wonders if Narcissa will reprimand him for knowing so little about Malfoy, but she seems to be caught in other thoughts, staring down at the photograph with a pensive expression. He likes circles. Narcissa turns the photograph over and glances about the table. Harry wordlessly hands her the quill, and she accepts it, writing a sentence on the back of the photograph. In incepto finus est, she says. In the beginning is the end. When Draco first found out what I did during the battle, the lie I told to the Dark Lord, he said that to me. In incepto finus est. And what did he mean by that? Harry's intrigued despite himself. That a mother's love brought about the first downfall of the Dark Lord, and a mother's love ensured his defeat again 17 years later. Harry sits back, a rush of some unidentifiable emotion crashing over him like a wave. I never thought about it like that, he says. I never thought. He glances at Narcissa. Why are you telling me this? She lifts a hand to the necklace around her neck, fingers resting on the sapphire pendant. I didn't travel all this way to tell a story of circles. I came here to ask if you intend to find my son. I was assigned the case. So was the first detective, 3 years ago, and he spoke my son's name as if it were mud in his mouth. He told me Draco had probably run away to live a life of luxury abroad. Harry flinches, although Narcissa spoke without anger. Her face is calm, like a deep lake, but Harry's experienced firsthand the dangers that lurk beneath still waters. I promise, Harry says, I'll do my best to find him. He hesitates, but Narcissa has been generously honest and sincere, and he feels obliged to return the favor. Hi, I originally thought that too. That Malfoy had just run away to join his father. He realizes he forgot to use Malfoy's given name, but Narcissa gives no indication of offense. But I don't believe that, not anymore. I've been revisiting all the evidence. I'm working on some new observations now, actually, he says, thinking of the missing wedding ring. Narcissa listens to him carefully, her eyes studying him as if he's a particularly difficult rune. Then she leans back slightly, clasping her hands in her lap. If you speak the truth, she says, I will give any information you require, any assistance you need to find my son. You trust easily. The words are uttered more from surprise than anything else. The Narcissa Malfoy he remembers certainly wouldn't trust him with her son's precious memories or secrets. Narcissa says nothing for a long moment. Then she reaches out and touches a hand to the photograph, as if reassuring herself it's real. Perhaps so, she allows, but my son has been missing for 3 long years now, and this seems to be his last chance. Should I gamble it for the sake of keeping secrets, guarding memories? Harry can't argue with that. After a long moment of silence, Narcissa hands him a card and stands up. My contact details. Please keep me updated. Certainly. Harry picks up the photograph to return to her, but Narcissa shakes her head. Keep it. You may find it useful somehow. He accompanies her to the door, wondering what he should ask about Malfoy. What information could possibly prove useful? He doesn't know where to start. What were the last words Draco said to you? He says impulsively. He's mildly curious, but it's partially a test to see if Narcissa will freely give personal information. She looks at him, then glances down at her hands as if the answer is written there. I can give you the memory, she says slowly, of our last meeting. The last time I saw him. Perhaps it may help. Well, Narcissa has gone beyond Harry's simple test of faith. The memory? He repeats. Narcissa nods. Aye, if it's not too much trouble, I suppose. He half expects Narcissa to say she'll send it to him in a day or so, but instead she stands there, waiting patiently, and Harry realizes she means now. He hurries away and, after a rushed rifle through the kitchen drawers, finds an empty potions vial to give her. He turns away and busies himself tidying the kitchen while she extracts her memory, knowing that some people prefer privacy while performing the spell. When he turns back to Narcissa, she's holding out the vial, silver wisps moving within. I must ask, she says, that you do not share the memory. Only I will see it, Harry promises. Narcissa nods once, then turns and departs without further farewell. Harry checks his watch. The game would have already started, he thinks, and Ginny knows, anyway, that his work always comes first, same as her Quidditch does for her. He slips the vial into his pocket and steps outside the apartment wards, disapparating to the ministry.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this chapter, please hit the subscribe button and ring the bell to stay updated with more audiobooks. Happy listening!